Alright guys, such a again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. A number of pro players revealing their biggest red flags as teammates in the current CDL era. Shotzzy gives his perspective among many other players, talking about some many key issues that they see with teammates that either they have at the moment or certainly have had in the past and have moved away from. What do you guys think about this perspective? Is Shotzzy talking about anyone specifically, or is he simply commenting in more general terms? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. Just quickly on iLLeY, right? Because he did quote tweet the Black Ops 7 reveal, seemingly implying, oh, well, you never know, maybe I might come back, because he tweeted out at the end of May that he's calling it a day and, said not the end, start of a new beginning, etc. But over the last few days, he's been like, oh, well, Black Ops 7 is looking pretty tasty. And then he did this tweet, so that Ghosty says, dropped 60.5 point for the loss in a Switch, lol. And iLLeY's like crying, laughing about it, which kind of implies to me that iLLeY's like, look, brother, like, let's run some Challs, and this wouldn't be a surprise, really. Look, iLLeY can retire from COD. He doesn't have to play it again professionally or whatever, or go through challenges. But is he going to want to stop playing Challs? No, let's be real. I mean, this is iLLeY. We're talking about one of the most, if not the most passionate COD players of all time. The OpTic guys talked about it on a podcast as well, where they said, look, this guy iLLeY was simply built different in many respects. And, one of the teammates that Shotzzy appreciated the most, and I mean, all the guys were talking about it, how much of a grinder iLLeY was, and, how important that was to his success and the team's success and the vibe and the culture in the team. Dashy was revealing how iLLeY would get so mad after a loss that Dashy would be like, also really, like, it would affect Dashy a lot as well. So it was like, damn, I better not lose, because then iLLeY's going to be pissed off at me, right? Which was like a motivating factor because of how much this guy wanted to win and also how much he wanted to work. And yeah, it's a shame what happened with iLLeY really over the last couple of years. But I just look at some of these tweets and I think iLLeY ain't done yet, like he doesn't really want to be done yet. That's my read. If the new game is consistent with that, and we'll see in due course whether that turns out to be true or not. I will say Drazah, he has been trying to play some Challs and continues to do so. He put another couple of videos out over the last couple of days on YouTube, which has been nice to see. Pred as well was grinding ranked play, so we're seeing some people play ranked. And to be fair, if you're not going to champs, you might as well. Obviously, it's not great and there are hackers and there are various issues in the entirety of this game, BO6 right now. But the guys don't really want to play ranked if you're going to champs, because it's playing on the new patch, right? And they're playing on the old patch right now for the World Championship. So there was some debate about the fact that Mercules is playing a bit of ranked, and he's like, well, should I really be playing it? Because the spawns are a bit different, and the Jackal's a bit different, and all these other things. That if you're not going to champs, then it probably doesn't really matter. But then again, I guess it is a question. Are we even going to be using the new Season 4 patch for the World Cup, right? I mean, who knows? If the Codcaster's still busted, we might be on like a half-a-year-old patch going into the World Cup, which would be, of course, an absolute disaster, but that's Call of Duty at the moment, baby. Now, Drazah was getting some Challs in yesterday, and I will say, the guys that he was playing in Challs, like, we've seen over the last few days, yeah, we might not get 8 players for Pro 8s, but at least in Challs, you're getting Kremp, you're getting Teach, you're getting maybe Dashy, maybe Scrappy's coming in, right? Like, you're getting at least some notable names. Not to say that, it isn't cool to see some of these guys involved, but like, Drazah's playing a 2v2 challenge with Sways, Kips, and Inkster, right? Like, where are the boys, right? Like, where are the CDL boys? Of course, Drazah's getting the wins, and he's like, look, I hate Challs. Kremp says that pissed me off, two's throne stays the same. So, this is how it goes. And then he plays another 2v2 challenge as well versus Vic and iLLeY, right, with Kremp. So he plays with Kremp this time, so he's back in business. But, yeah, I just look at it, find it all rather remarkable. But this is the big clip that I wanted to go through for you guys. So the CDL sit down, or not really sit down, but they stand up with some of the pro players over the last couple of events, and they ask them, okay, of your teammates, not even necessarily of your teammates, but what's your biggest red flag? And to be fair, this always has to come from some level of experience, really. Obviously, you can, theorize hypothetically, but these guys have been around the block enough times to say, okay, what things in a teammate do I not like and like? And some of the guys will say, a lot of the pro players will not always be there bang on time. Like, let's say scrims start at 11, you're meant to be getting there at 10:45 to make sure you can get a bit of warm-up work in, whatever the case is. it's not an uncommon thing throughout the league for people to be a little bit, late to the party. So, that happens. For some players, that's a big deal. For other players, it's like, well, whatever. He's 10 minutes late. It's not the end of the world. Like, it is what it is. The other team probably had a guy that's also 10 minutes late. So it is a conversation point. Insight makes it pretty clear that he's like, look, that's a big thing for him as a teammate. But for other guys, there's other stories. I thought that, honestly, it would be a more common answer to be like, look, you're turning up late, pissing me off, wasting my time. I think that'd be my answer. But like, for a lot of the pro players, it's a little different to that. So they talk about it at various topics, actually. I thought HyDra's answer was very interesting, where he said, look, if you don't want to win as much as I want to win, that's a red flag. Like, I need you fully committed in the same way that I'm fully committed. And, because HyDra's been, I think it's interesting to see, not exactly this side of HyDra, because this is who HyDra is, but we don't see much of HyDra's personality, right? Like, he's not streaming an awful lot. He is on occasion, but, we don't get to see that much of it. There was an interview, I think Dareel sat down with HyDra and did an interview with him last year on the Breaking Point channel, and he was talking about how whatever the record is for the World Championship wins, he wants one more than that. So Karma and Kremp and Clayster, they currently have 3 rings. It may be more in, who knows? Well, those guys aren't winning anymore, but, Simp could win a 3rd this year, could get even more, whatever. HyDra said, look, if the record is 3, I want 4. If the record is 4, I want 5. Like, that's HyDra's mentality. He's got 1, so, maybe this year he can get a 2nd, but that's one of the key points. But I thought Shotzzy's answer was pretty interesting, because if you look at Shotzzy's career, his teammates have been pretty damn good, right? For the outset in Call of Duty, have been pretty damn good. There haven't been too many occasions where, there have really been issues. But, obviously, in the recent couple of years, things have got a little bit more chaotic there behind the scenes. So I'll share what the pros have to say. Interested to hear what, you guys would say as your red flag in the comments below, your primary red flag. Either pick one of the guys that mentioned them here or have your own perspective. But then we'll talk a little bit more about what Shotzzy could be talking about.
Biggest red flag in a teammate.
Biggest red flag?
Biggest red flag in a teammate. Ah, shit.
If they're getting turned on, like, if they can't get a kill, then, like, that's a red flag.
Not wanting the win as much as I do.
I'd probably say complaining a lot, to be honest. That's probably, like, the biggest.
It's got to be getting up late. If you're late to scrims, you're not taking it serious. It's not hard to be on time.
I would just say, like, having bad vibes, like, at all times, because I feel like, I don't think people realize how far, like, good vibes and energy goes as being, a good teammate.
Just not getting, like, good attitude on the team and good comp.
Accountability, like, if they don't have accountability and, like, how they take losses. Because, I mean, if you lose and you're just blaming everyone else and you feel like you did no wrong, 99% of the time that is not true. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just the willing to learn and take it, like, criticism.
It's an interesting answer from Shotzzy, I thought. Stop complaining, basically, right? If you're moaning all the time, if you're crying all the time, it's disrupting the team flow. Don't want to hear it. Now, of course, it's fine to complain about certain plays and criticize certain plays, but, there's a certain level of energy. And I think this is one of the points as well that aBeZy made. It's like, you've got to be a good teammate to be around. The vibes have to be strong. And if the vibes aren't strong because you're moaning about something or another, then that's a bit of an issue. So let's just think through Shotzzy's career. Now, he could be talking about the Halo days. He might not be talking about anyone individually, right? But I just wanted to look through, like, the players that he has team with who he might be talking about, because there's, of course, one name who comes to mind here, potentially, just because of how it ended with OpTic a couple of years ago. And not to say that that's the same story today by any means, but it was definitely a talking point at the time when they decided to sign Kenny anyway. But Shotzzy came into the COD League. He played his first year with iLLeY, who he talks about very highly, with Huke, who he talks about very highly and is still teaming with today, as we know that's a great duo, and then with Clay and Kremp, right? So, those guys are Clay and Kremp. Sure, was Kremp the best teammate in Modern Warfare 19? Yes, as far as Shotzzy's concerned. Was he the best teammate the following year in Cold War? No. Basically, Shotzzy said that Kremp was the best team he'd ever played with in Modern Warfare 19 and was the worst team he'd ever played with in the following year because he was just a nightmare to deal with. So, maybe that's what's going on there. But also that year they had Vivid came in, but I don't really think that Vivid is too much of a... Vivid, like... Maybe he's not, let's say, conflicting enough. I don't know. Like, Vivid always finds himself getting dropped somehow. He was on that Dallas Empire team that year. They had FeLo briefly. Of course, they had Huke and iLLeY as well for a time. So, pretty similar story. And then the following year, of course, when the OpTic Texas merger then happened, Shotzzy ends up with Scump. That's Scump. With Dashy, with iLLeY. And okay, that season was pretty dramatic. They had Proloot briefly. They had General briefly. And, they did a couple of things that year. Then the following year, of course, well, Scump ends up retiring and things change quite dramatically. That's, though, of course, when Ghosty comes into the mix, and I think that's the interesting piece, because when Ghosty was eventually, kicked right off the OpTic team, they decided to move in the direction of Kenny. And look, in hindsight, that was the right decision, and maybe it was even the right thing for Ghosty as well at the time, because, look, there was big talking point at the end of that season that Dashy and Shotzzy, as good as Ghosty was, as valuable as he was to the team, he was just a bit of a difficult teammate to play with. You know, obviously there was talk from Shotzzy there about, like, the complaining at the time. There was talk that Ghosty was a bit, like, checky as a player, was the way that Shotzzy described him, effectively indicating that, like, you know, he was just a little bit rough around the edges, a little abrasive, a little bit difficult to deal with as a teammate. And look, I think maybe that's what we're getting at here. But also it's relevant, you know, things change over time to the present day as well. I think the other answers were certainly interesting from top to bottom as well. So intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comments below. This also pretty interesting, speaking of Ghosty, because I think in many respects, the decision that OpTic made then and how it's translated through now to the present day has probably been beneficial on both aspects, right? Because you've got Ghosty now on Thieves, the team's looking real nice. I think Ghosty's improved a lot as a player since his first year in the league. He was really good then, right? Like, he had good gunny, great comms, and all of that. But, you know, as I say, he was probably a little bit rougher around the edges than he is today and a little bit harder to team with than he is today. And I think that the couple of years that Ghosty's now been in the league and the experiences that he's had have made him an even more, you know, fearsome player than he used to be. And kind of remarkable to look even back to the last couple of seasons when Ghosty was making finals. Now, he was making finals against teams that OpTic eventually lost to famously in that 2023 season. They made a couple of grand finals, didn't work out. But it is interesting to see that over the last couple of years, basically every grand finals has featured one member of today's Thieves lineup. Now, maybe you'd say, well, it's not much of a surprise. They're great players and they were teaming on different teams, which is true. But still, it is interesting to think about, right? That, like, even back to Champs 2022, when Envoy was in the grand finals then, the event before that, Envoy and HyDra were in the grand finals of that event. Champs 2023 was HyDra and Scrap, and that whole season had either HyDra in a finals with New York, had Envoy in the finals with Thieves, had, obviously, you know, Scrap in the finals with Toronto, had Ghosty in the finals that year with OpTic, and then the following year was a similar story. Major 2 wasn't the case in 2024, but apart from that, you know, we had Envoy and Scrap, HyDra on occasion, and now they've formed the roster. They've been in 3 of the 4 grand finals, right? So certainly notable, really, to look back on. I thought it was also interesting just to quickly look at Attach's tier list. We might go through this in more detail over the coming days, but he decided to put only 4 players right at the top in the S tier, which I think is probably the way to do it as well. When we did our tier list, we had eventually 6, but, you know, I preferred really to do it this way. Scrap, Cellium, HyDra, Simp, the best 4 players in the game, I would say. You know, maybe the only superstars in the game, I would say, as it stands. And I think that you can probably justify that as well. So intrigued to your thoughts, as always, on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.
Oh, IW, I wanted to murder myself, bro.
Yeah. So it's
E-Rad bullets are bouncing off walls and shit.
yeah,
People are flying through the sky. I'm like, bro, like, I remember Black Ops 3 at the first event. All the pros fucking always laugh at this. They had like the pro summit or whatever back then because it was at the EGL studios in Burbank.
Yep.
And these guys are up there like, so what do we got to do to get these things restricted and like what's competitive? And this fucking guy's like, well, shock charges should be in the game. Some dev guy from fucking Activision. He's like, shock charges should be in the game because it eliminates a lane. And I literally stood up. I'm like, you mean to tell me if I take this fucking water bottle and place it over here and go to the other side of the map and you fucking fall off the wall because you got shock charge, that's competitive or strategy or anything? Like, bro, we haven't been playing with claymores for 15 years. Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
And everybody's just dying laughing. The guy's like, I think it's strategic. It takes away a lane. And I'm just like, bro, you don't know one fucking lick about strategic. Like, not one. I'm like, I don't know who the fuck you think you're talking to, but no, we're not playing with fucking shock charges. Like, seriously, bro. That's how, like, bro, these people, they have no clue.